You know, we throw around the term cybermobbing all the time, but have you ever stopped to think about what it really means when an online attack just explodes? We're going to break down the mechanics of that digital pylon and figure out what makes it so different and honestly, so much more dangerous.
So let's get right to it. Why is a digital insult so different? I mean, we've all seen people being mean to each other, right? So what is it about the online world that makes an attack so much more damaging? Why does it hit so much harder than something you might hear in the real world, like on a playground?
Well, it really boils down to three things, and each one is a total game changer. First, the audience isn't just a few people, it can be global. Second, the evidence doesn't just fade away, it can be permanent. And third, there's just no escape. You put those three things together, and suddenly, what looks like simple harassment becomes something else entirely.
Okay, so let's dive into our first section. To really get this, we have to understand the scale of it. We're talking about a problem that quite literally has no off switch.
So let's get a clear definition on the table. What exactly is cybermobbing? The two words you really need to remember here are intentional and repeated. We're not talking about a single mean comment that someone regrets later. Nope. This is a sustained attack, where there's often a power imbalance, and the whole point is to use digital media to go after someone again and again.
And you might be thinking, well, how common is this really? The answer might surprise you. According to a huge 2024 report from the World Health Organization, about 15% of adolescents in Europe reported being cyberbullied. That's roughly 1 in every 7 kids. Just think about that for a second. In a typical classroom, you're looking at several students dealing with this. It's not rare at all.
But maybe the single most damaging part of all this is how it completely shatters the idea of your home being a safe space. Because the attack isn't happening in the schoolyard, it's happening on a device. It doesn't stop when the bell rings. It literally follows you home, right there in your pocket, buzzing with notifications 24/7.
So the big question is, how does this all get so big, so fast? How does it spiral out of control? Well, it's because the technology we use every day acts like a massive digital amplifier.
And this really gets to the heart of it. Let's do a quick comparison. Think about an offline insult. The audience is pretty limited, right? And eventually, people forget. But an online attack? Whoa. The audience can be huge, it's public, it can be permanent, and it's there 24/7. The digital world itself completely changes the nature of the attack.
And this escalation, it almost always follows the same pattern, like a viral chain reaction. Here's how it works. Step 1. It all starts with a single harmful post or image. Step 2. Someone takes a screenshot, and poof, all the original context is gone. Step 3. That screenshot gets shared and then reshared across different groups, different platforms. And finally, Step 4. The pylon. This is where a tidal wave of comments, likes, and shares just buries the person, amplifying that one single post beyond anyone's control.
Right, that idea of a pylon is super important, because it shows us that this is about way more than just one bully and one victim. It's actually a social thing, with a bunch of different people playing different parts.
And when you actually break down who's involved, the numbers are pretty staggering. The people who actually start it, the initiators, they're a tiny fraction, maybe 5%. The active supporters are about a quarter of the group. But look at this. The vast majority, 70%, are silent bystanders. It's their silence, or even just a small action like a like or a share, that gives the mob all its power. It really is a group effort.
Okay, so that leads us to a really big question, doesn't it? If all of this is happening on social media, are the platforms themselves just neutral ground? Are they just the digital equivalent of a public park?
Well, the answer from regulators and experts is a pretty loud and clear no. The thinking has really shifted. As this idea from EU regulatory debates points out, the actual design of a platform, things like recommendation algorithms, push notifications, all those features designed to keep you engaged, are now seen as a safety issue. They can accidentally amplify harmful stuff and create all this pressure. The design itself is not neutral.
All right, so if the system itself is part of the problem, what do we do about it? How do we start to fix this? The good news is there are some real tools and strategies being developed that can help us build a fairer web.
Let's start with something really practical. Think of this as a first aid kit for anyone who's going through this. Number 1, don't respond. Seriously, engaging with them just gives them what they want. Number 2, document everything. Take screenshots of it all before anything gets deleted. 3, block and report. Use the tools the platform gives you to stop the contact and flag the abuse. And number 4, and this is probably the most important, tell someone you trust, a parent, a teacher, a friend. You don't have to go through it alone.
Now, beyond what we can do as individuals, the rules for the whole internet are actually changing, especially in Europe. And a huge piece of this is something called the Digital Services Act, or the DSA. This thing is a pretty big deal. It's a whole new set of rules designed to make online platforms take way more responsibility for keeping their users safe.
So, what does that actually mean for you, an everyday user? Well, for starters, platforms have to make it much easier to report harmful stuff. It also means you get more control over what you see in your recommendation feeds. And this one is huge. It means safer default settings for younger users, like making their accounts private by default. These are just abstract ideas. They're real changes that give you more power. And what all this really points to is a massive, fundamental shift in thinking. For years, the burden of staying safe online was basically put on you, the user. But that's finally changing. Now, it's being seen for what it is, a shared responsibility, one that falls on everyone, parents, schools, and yes, absolutely the tech platforms themselves.
So, here we are. We've got new rules, we've got new tools. The landscape is definitely changing. But the real question is, what are we going to do with it? Are we actually going to build a better, kinder online culture? Because at the end of the day, that isn't just up to the rule makers or the tech companies, it's up to all of us.